Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. My name is Natalia Moczulska and this is the news. 201 days of war in Ukraine. Yesterday night, the Russians shot at Kharkiv's housing estates. In turn, the Ukrainian army displaced Russian troops for more than 20 towns. Russian troops hurriedly leave their positions and flee deep into the occupied territories or to Russia. According to the Institute for War Studies, despite the successful Ukraine counteroffensive, this is not the end of the war, which will probably last until 2023. Yesterday, the Ukrainian army achieved the next goals of its counteroffensive, and the Ukrainians reached Lysychansk. Fighting has been going on for several years on the outskirts of the city. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked the soldiers for their sacrifice on the battlefield. You have taught your enemies many things, the ability to quickly pack your belongings and escape our land. You helped them understand that by abandoning combat equipment and weapons, it can be done much faster. Many will remember what awaits those who entered Ukraine without permission. The Ukrainian General Staff of the Armed Forces reported that the Russians suffered significant losses after successful actions towards Kherson. An independent brigade of Marines stationed near the city lost almost 85%, and in Novakhovka in the Kherson region, the Ukrainians seized a large warehouse with Russian ammunition. The Russian army donated equipment worth nearly $130 million to the Ukrainian armed forces. During the retreat from the Kharkiv region, they left as much equipment as needed to supply the entire battalion. Defeats at the front. The Russians are trying to make up with attacks on civilian objects. A thermal power plant was hit by fire in Kharkiv. As a result, electricity and water supplies were suspended. Local authorities say the situation is under control and energy supplies have resumed. There were 2 duty officers in the building hit by the missile. We found one who is already dead. The search for the other is underway. Random people are the most likely victims of the war that has been going on for months. Over 8,000 children were injured or missing as a result of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. According to estimates by Ukrainian lawyers, more than 7,000 children have been deported to Russia since the beginning of the conflict. According to the people of Odessa, there is no logic or strategic sense in the Russian attacks. Now we know what to do when we hear anti-aircraft sirens. Children know where to go in the event of an air attack and understand that it is necessary to save a life. In the context of the current events at the front, French President Emmanuel Macron spoke by phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Élysée Palace informs that the topic of discussion was the situation in the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The Russians will not withdraw from the power plant site. It will only happen when the Ukrainians displace them. Soft arguments have so far been unsuccessful. Meanwhile, the sanctions are increasingly weakening the Russian economy. But according to experts, international limitations are a double-edged sword that also affects the Western market. Moscow is threatening that if the EU's policy is continued, Europe may expect a painful response in the coming months, especially in autumn and winter.
First of all, to face the emergency, which means to suspend, in a way, what is the normal dynamics of the market, and to try to lower the cost of energy and other very important materials.
The risk of a serious energy crisis in Poland can be averted thanks to cooperation with Ukraine. We will receive by the end of September 100,000 tons of coal, and in the coming months, electricity will flow to us from Ukrainian power plants. We can expect that the deliveries that flow to us will be able to, in a way, satisfy our needs, but the situation is changing dynamically. Polish-Ukrainian friendship deepened as a result of the dramatic events of recent months. Rapidly developing cooperation is an opportunity for both economies. Poland is considered as the main partner in the post-war reconstruction of Ukraine. The new King of Great Britain, Charles III, addressing for the first time in this role members of both houses of the British Parliament, assured that following in the footsteps of his mother, Elizabeth II, he would preserve and support constitutional order. In the afternoon, the monarch traveled to Edinburgh, where he took part in escorting the coffin containing Elizabeth II's body from the Palace of Holyrood House to Edinburgh Cathedral. Members of the British Parliament gathered at the Palace of Westminster expressed their condolences and an oath of loyalty to King Charles III. The new monarch emphasized in his speech that following in the footsteps of his mother, he would maintain and support the constitutional order.
We gather today in remembrance of the remarkable span of the Queen's dedicated service to her nations and peoples. While very young, Her late Majesty pledged herself to serve her country and her people, and to maintain the precious principles of constitutional government which lie at the heart of our nation. This vow she kept with unsurpassed devotion. She set an example of selfless duty, which, with God's help and your counsels, I am resolved faithfully to follow.
King Charles III then traveled to Edinburgh, where he and his queen wife Camilla took part in escorting the coffin containing the body of Elizabeth II from the Palace of Holyrood House to St. Giles Cathedral. The late queen was accompanied by thousands of people gathered along the procession route to pay tribute to her.
Well, I'm here just to show respect. The main thing is the Queen spent 7 decades giving her life to all us as a nation.
We've travelled up especially from Lincolnshire. We set off at midnight to get here, so it took us 4 or 5 hours to get here. So she was a great lady, so that's why we wanted to come up and show our respects.
Earlier this evening, the new British monarch met with Scottish Prime Minister Nicola Sturgeon and received condolences from the Scottish Parliament. In the United Kingdom, feverish preparations are underway for the funeral of Elizabeth II, which is scheduled to take place in a week. As reported by the Politico portal, each country will be able to be represented only by its leader and their spouse. In addition, they were asked to come to the islands by scheduled planes. The day before the funeral, foreign guests will have the opportunity to pay tribute to the late Queen in person. This week, the Queen's coffin will lie in the Westminster Palace, and people will have the opportunity to pay their respects to the Queen. Of course, there will be a funeral for the Queen on Monday, September 19th. Meanwhile, condolences continue to flow to London over the death of the Queen from all over the world. In Hong Kong, there was a long line of residents in front of the British Embassy building, waiting for an entry in the condolence book. Hong Kong was a British colony, part of our history that will not be erased. I came here to take some photos that I will be able to show to my child in the future, to tell him about the history behind Hong Kong's identity, so that he will not forget it when he grows up. Although not even a week has passed since the death of Queen Elizabeth II, the authorities of Antigua and Barbuda have announced that they will hold a referendum on the transformation of the state system from a monarchy into a republic. It would take place within 3 years. Regardless of its result, the country declares its intention to remain in the British Commonwealth of Nations. Israel will assist Germany's efforts to strengthen its armed forces, as well as tackle an energy crisis after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid said on a visit to the German capital earlier today. Germany has ramped up its military spending after Russia sent troops into Ukraine in February, while shipping aid and heavy weapons to Kiev as part of an international response.
This partnership has economical and security benefits. It is a practical expression of Germany's commitment to Israel's security as a Jewish and a democratic state, a commitment you reaffirmed when you took office. Israel, for its part, will play a role in building Germany's new defense force, mainly in the field of air defense, as you just mentioned. Talk does not stop evil. Liberal democracies must be willing and able to defend themselves. Sometimes freedom must be defended by force. Our partnership also requires us to act together against the growing threat of Iran becoming a nuclear state.
The two leaders also discussed the stuttering efforts to revive a 2015 nuclear agreement with Iran, with Scholz urging Tehran to not turn down proposals made by Europe.
It is time to move past the failed negotiations with Iran. They cannot and will not achieve the goal we all share to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. We discussed the need for a new strategy to stop Iran's nuclear program. A nuclear Iran will destabilize the Middle East and create a nuclear arms race that will endanger the entire world. Returning to the nuclear agreement, under the current conditions would be a critical mistake. Removing sanctions and pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into Iran will bring waves of terrorism, not only to the Middle East, but also across Europe.
Lapid described their talks as leading to a future possible deal for Germany to purchase Arrow 3 missile defense system from Israel, but declined to outline the cost. Scholz said Germany would strengthen its defenses by buying more air defense systems in the future and called the Arrow 3 system a high-performance offer, but also declined to go into specifics. Arrow 3 interceptors are designed to fly beyond the Earth's atmosphere, where their warheads detach to become kamikaze satellites or kill vehicles that track and slam into the targets. Such high-altitude shoot-downs are meant to safely destroy incoming nuclear, biological, or chemical missiles. When asked about Europe's energy crisis, Lapid said that Israel will probably be able to export gas to Europe, hopefully next year, as part of the effort to replace Russian gas in Europe. Austrian symbolist artist Gustav Klimt's masterpieces come to life in an immersive exhibit in New York, inaugurating a new museum that merges technology, art, and music. The exhibit, called Gustav Klimt Gold in Motion, which opens on Wednesday, enfolds visitors in 30-foot-high images of his works in the landmarked Emigrant Industrial Savings Bank building, now the 33,000-square-foot Hall de Lumière, located in Manhattan's Civic Center neighborhood in New York City. Klimt's most famous work, The Kiss, was painted in 1907 to 1908, during the height of his golden period, and seemingly drips off the center's 30-foot marble walls.
Klimt is a painter, very original and decorative. I think it's very nice to use his details. He used different kind of material, like gold, but also other kind of material, and like a decorative painter. Then when you put this not on the canvas but on the wall, you see like a tapestry, you see like every time a new world. And this is the originality also of the secession in Vienna, that was a movement, revolutionary, the classic work of the painting.
The exhibit is the first in a line of immersive shows using technology to combine art and music at the Halles de Lumière. Culture Spaces is behind the project, known for their digital fine art displays showcasing the works of Vincent van Gogh, Claude Monet, and Auguste Renoir at the famed Atelier de Lumière in Paris.
You are not in front of something like in the cinema, the screen, or in the museum, like a painting, but you are inside and you have a different kind of sensation with your look, but also you hear, also you move around. And all this is a special experience and sensitive and emotional experience. This is the great difference of the immersion exhibition.
Creative director Gianfranco Iannuzzi, who created the current Van Gogh Starry Night show at the Atelier de Lumière in Paris, hopes such exhibitions will make traditional artworks more popular.
It's very important also to open the art and the culture to a large audience and large people, because not every people go to the museum. But maybe with this kind of approach is discover something new, and then maybe he is stimulated to go to see the real original painting in the museum. Then I think there is no contradiction between this kind of experience and the museum, but is complementary.
The Big Apple's largest digital art center is jointly owned and operated by French museum manager Culture Spaces and IMG, a global events, sports, and talent management company. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and some of our other programs. But for me, it's have a great night.